Hello, welcome to Chat UTD. I was hoping for us to be able to talk about confirmed transfers going in, coming out of Old Trafford. Unfortunately not, but there's still plenty to talk about. My last video was 11 days ago, and in that 11 days, let's just look at facts. We haven't signed anybody or let anybody go. I'm sure that there's work going on behind the scenes. I'm sure that we're not laying dormant. I'm sure there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes. But nonetheless, in terms of the cold, hard facts, forget rumour, forget conjecture, I'm not judging it against what the Daily Mail said or what some guy on Twitter said that we were supposed to be doing. I'm judging it on the facts. We haven't signed anybody or let anybody go in 11 days. And 11 days in a condensed transfer window with a squad of players that, let's again look at facts, finished 8th and lost 14 games last season. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. Now, before the transfer window opened, I said that because of the delay in getting Ashworth in and getting Barada in, which was some of that taken out of Ineos's hands, it was going to be difficult for us to have the transfer window that we wanted. And I stopped short of saying that it would be a write-off, because you want to be proved wrong. The revolution that we needed, maybe it could still happen, or maybe partially happen, but it's not close to happening. And I think this transfer window is just very similar to other transfer windows we've had over the last few years. And really, I think it probably is a little bit of a write-off in terms of meaningful progress within the squad. And in terms of getting into that stage one that I've spoken about lots of times, which I'll come back to a little bit later. And it comes back to the fact that we needed a full takeover. I think if we had a full takeover, especially with someone with inordinate amounts of money where finances were not as restricted, I think that person comes in and says, in January, we're going to look at Dan Ashworth. If we can get him in now, we'll pay the money to get him in now because we need him and we're efficient and we want him and we need to be ruthless. We need to flex our muscles a bit if we need to financially. Or if Newcastle are playing hardball and we decide we're not going to have our pants pulled down, then you move on to a different target. But Ineos did neither of those things. They wanted Ashworth probably because they feel he's the best man, but it's really compromised our transfer window because one of the main people that we needed to help us with this transfer window hasn't been available until only a few weeks ago. Again, with the full takeover, I don't think that would happen, and I believe then that in January, February, March, April, Dan Ashworth or whoever that would be working on deals so that then when the Euros and the Copa America are over, or even maybe before they start, we've just got tap-ins to go and get deals done, because that is what we needed. And that clearly hasn't happened. I'm sure work has been done on signings, without a doubt, but the volume of players coming in and particularly the volume of players going out is not as high as it needs to be. And look, it's not all Ineos's fault. They've inherited a mess. They've come into some faulty wiring made by the Glazers, and the situation they find themselves is that the people that the Glazers have employed have given watertight, astronomical contracts to players who don't deserve them and are not good enough, and have been in poor form over the last few years in most of their cases anyway. And so they're not attractive to potential buyers. And that's difficult. And because we haven't had a full takeover, Ineos are not in a position to just write off players and say, we'll accept less than what they're worth in terms of transfer fees, because we need money, again, because we're still hampered by the Glazers. So the legacy damage that the Glazers have done and will continue to do is still massive. That said, although I have empathy for Ineos and the new regime, it means you have to be even more efficient, because with all of these things against us, you need the right people through the door quickly. You need to hit the ground running. We need to start shifting some of this and repairing some of this damage as quickly as possible, and we haven't been able to do that. We haven't made a particularly good start on that, I don't think, and it's a big concern. This week, apparently, we're going to sign Mazraoui, should I say, from Bayern Munich, right back, and I think by the look of it, Wan-Bissaka is going to go as a result of that. Really, that he's going to go to West Ham. I don't think right back's a problem at United. I think we've made work for ourselves in this. There's far bigger fish to fry in this squad, and there's far bigger problems in this squad, and there's far bigger problem areas that need to be addressed than right back. We have two very competent right backs. They have different playing styles, so perhaps what Ten Hag is thinking is he wants someone who can seamlessly come in with them play instead of Dalot, or Dalot come in and play instead of Mazraoui. I get that, but it's not. That's a finishing pieces of the jigsaw move. It's not. I don't see that Aaron Wan-Bissaka is a problem within this squad. He's. Let's look at the profile of players that Ineos said they wanted to get rid of, or certainly implied they wanted to get rid of. Old, poor attitude, on astronomical wages. None of those things apply to Aaron Wan-Bissaka. When I've spoken before about this stage one thing, stage one of the Ineos regime for me has to be that we clear the rot out of the squad. We clear out the players who have showed themselves not to be good enough over a period of time, who are on big wages, perhaps that don't deserve them, and we really kind of go through it like a dose of salts and take those key characters out of the squad, so that really the shell of it remains with maybe 4 or 5 of the current squad still there, and you replace the players that have gone with good characters, players who you can trust, not necessarily world beaters, but players who the fans can get on board with and start to like again and identify with, and hopefully finish in and around the top 6 and have a good cup run and just start to steady ourselves as a club again and get something that we can look out on the pitch and say, yeah, I can get on board with that. Wan-Bissaka for me is a perfect type of player for that fits that description. He's not going to win titles with United, I don't think, but he's the best one-on-one fullback in the league defensively. His attacking play has improved massively. I know he's not going to get forward and perhaps do the same things that Diego Dalot can do, and he's certainly not going to score a 20-yard screamer like Diego Dalot can. But I repeat, it's not a problem area of the pitch for United. And it brings me on to a bigger point, which I'm a bit concerned about. I think United, far from making the big decisions that need to be made and doing what Ineos indicated they would do, so we're going to get rid of these characters that are just perhaps not right for the squad, and they are on too big wages and blah blah blah. We're not doing that. We're getting rid of the players that are easy to get rid of. And the ones I think I don't think there's loads of toxicity within that dressing room. I think that's harsh, but there's some characters in there that I think probably do have a bit of toxic influence. They're still there, and the ones that are on daft wages are still there, and there's some that are past their best that are still there. So the players of the profile we're supposed to get rid of are staying, and the players of the profile that apparently Ineos wanted are going. I haven't got loads to base that on, but Wan-Bissaka is probably a symbol of that. And this is a projection. I don't know it's going to happen definitely, but my prediction is they'll probably get rid of Palestri, and I think they'll probably get rid of Hannibal. And again, these are easy players to get rid of because they're young and they're talented, and probably people want to buy them. But I don't want to particularly. I don't want Palestri to go. He's the only winger that we've got that's like an orthodox winger that takes players on and that puts crosses in. Rasmus Højlund is a player that has elements of his game that are that of an old-fashioned striker, a big bullish centre forward. And the only player that crosses to him is Palestri, and Palestri barely played any minutes, but he's quick, he dribbles really well, he attracts loads of foul, he draws loads of foul, he attracts loads of players towards him, he can cross the ball really well, he can shoot and cut inside if he needs to. I think he's perfectly suited to the Premier League, and I think he's perfectly suited to Rasmus because no other player, winger, passes to him. No, yeah, speculative. Maybe Plestre will stay, but I think that far from doing the tough decisions that need to be made, that they're just getting rid of players that are easy to get rid of that actually are not a problem, um, and would be perfectly okay to be in that stage one. And I know it's difficult to get rid of those more high profile players because they are on huge wages, and perhaps other clubs don't want to buy them. So there's mitigating circumstances to that. But again, it brings me back to the fact that we needed a full takeover because you could take a hit on those players. Ineos can't do that. We haven't got the freedom to do that, and the club's in loads of debt, and we're in FFP trouble. There's problem within problem within problem. It's not all Ineos' fault by any means, but it just means I think we're in a really difficult position. And what I see is they're trying to change the environment with different coaches and perhaps with a different kind of flavour and feeling around the place that by who they're putting in place, like Dan Ashworth, like Barada, like all the different coaches, like I said before, and perhaps a sprinkling of new players as well. And maybe hoping that then brings the best out of players who've been here and had their chance. You could argue if you change the environment, you do get more out of players, but the players, are they a cause or a symptom? I don't know. It's hard, isn't it? I think those players have been here and have played a part, certainly, in the culture and the environment that we've got. And, I'm not going to name names, I'm not going to personalise it, but a lot of these players, they've had changes of environment, they've had different managers, they've had different personality managers, they've had Solskjaer, they've had Rangnick, they've had Ten Hag, they've had different coaching staff. Their day-to-day is the people they spend time with on the training pitch. So whilst the culture of the whole club will feel better and feel more like perhaps there's an actual focus on the game of football now, which is great, and maybe there's some rules and boundaries that these more high-profile players will hopefully have to keep. When they've created that, or certainly partially created that environment in the first place, I think it's difficult to get more out of that. I said it before, I think it's difficult to get a different tune out of the same choir. And I think there's also an element, certainly for some of these players, that, and again, I won't personalise it, but there's a certain number of these players that I just think are so far up their own backsides, they don't think they need to change. So if you change the environment and you've got a really good group who go, maybe we've let the side down a little bit here, maybe we need to look at ourselves and take responsibility, then brilliant. You've got a chance. But I don't see that self-reflection is a strength in some of these players. Some of them maybe they would be, but quite a few, no. I don't feel like the squad really this summer so far, and even with what we're projected to do, I think we will sign another centre midfield player, and I think we probably will sign another centre back. I don't think we've particularly progressed from last season. Remember, we finished 8th last season and we lost 14 games. So Zerki comes in, essentially replaces Martial. So that's probably a slight upgrade. Who else we bought? So Yoro, very promising young player, but Varane went. So position wise, that's a replacement. Although of course he's nowhere near a Varane. So we've replaced one with another. Wan-Bissaka will go and they'll bring in probably Mazraoui. Again, it's like for like. He might slightly improve, but he's got a bad record with injuries. Again, that's a red flag. That's not even been made yet as a signing. But centre midfield, I think probably Casemiro really needs to go. I don't see him getting any fitter, stronger, more enthusiastic next year than last year. With the way he waned at the end of last season was really concerning. So, you'll get a defensive midfield player in. Again, that's good, but how much of an upgrade will that be with the money that we've got available to us? I look at all the issues around the squad in terms of Ten Hag when he came in. The clear out needed to happen then, and it didn't. So in the first season, he tried to play his way for 2 games. We got absolutely pummeled by Brentford 4-0 after losing at home to Brighton in the first game, and he decided that it was probably wiser to play with the cards he'd been dealt, which was a really smart move. And he basically played Solskjaer football because that squad was Solskjaer's squad. And We were quite tight at the back. We played quite a deep line, not as deep maybe as Solskjaer. We pressed probably a little bit more efficiently than we did under Solskjaer. And Rashford ran into some form and scored 30 goals in moments. And that was what that was based on. You can dress it up as something different, but it wasn't. Come to season 2, he tried again to play his way of playing. We got loads of injuries. And the only time it really changed properly was when everyone was fit for a very brief period of time in January and February. That didn't last long enough. And then at the end of the season, when he finally made peace with the fact he's going to have to change things after the Crystal Palace game, we got beat 4-0. And he went back to that more pragmatic way of playing, and we started to pick up decent results. And then obviously we did what we did to City, but that again was Solskjaer football. So we haven't progressed as a club in terms of playing style in 2 years. And with what I'm hearing, and maybe Mazraoui represents that in terms of he's perhaps more of a Ten Hag type of player. Maybe Zirkzee is, maybe Yoro is, but I don't see these as being transformative signings. I might be wrong, and I hope I am wrong. But I go back to what I said before about the stage one. I don't even think we're in stage one yet of what Ineos want to do. I think this is the prequel. This is all that we're still saddled by the Glazer legacy. And because of that, we're not even in that stage where we can just clear the rot, make those big decisions that we need to do. We're unable or choosing not to do that. And therefore, you're just trying to get the same tune out of a different tune out of the same choir. And I think inevitably, for me, it leads to Ten Hag probably losing his job during the season. And I really, really, really hope that we don't then go and get Gareth Southgate, because I don't think that's the right call for us at all. But that's a different story, I suppose. So I hope that sums up kind of. I've tried to be balanced. I'm not going to start, having a massive go at Ineos, because I do understand it's difficult. But the cold hard facts really lead me to believe that I think it's going to be very, very difficult for United to make progress this season. And I know we'll sign another couple of players. I'm not saying we won't. But even with that, I think I have revised my thoughts now, and I won't stop short of saying it. I think this window is essentially a little bit of a write-off in terms of meaningful progress for next season. And really, it feels like, again, it's next summer that will be the big summer where those key people have got their feet under the table. But how many times have we heard this? Like, it's next summer, it's the next summer. This one's a big one next. And then once we're in it, it's just like, oh, well, yeah, but it was never going to happen straight away. We've been saying this for 5 years. There are mitigating circumstances for Ineos, but nonetheless, I'm about to end the video, as I always do with Glazers out. That is the be-all and end-all for our football club. This is why this channel started, is to talk about it. And there's never a video that I do where I don't think that is the most transformative thing that can happen to our football club, is that they leave it. And I say it with meaning every single time. Glazers out.